Good Tuesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock, time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Plenty of Browns to talk about. We mentioned the Za'Darius Smith trade that happened Friday and the two roster moves that opened up a roster spot, and Andrew Berry filled that today with, in fact, a cornerback. Chris Westry has been signed, played with the Ravens for a couple of seasons, has played in the NFL for a couple of years, is a guy that has had some success on special teams, 85 special team snaps, played pretty well. Again, a younger cornerback, a depth piece. Let's welcome in Browns beat reporter Kay Cabot from the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. And Mary Kay, Andrew Berry can never have enough cornerbacks. Westry seems like a guy that could show up on special teams some if he sticks on the 53-man roster.
Yeah, I think what you're seeing now is, now that they've done all the heavy lifting, you will see Andrew Berry just fill in some back end spots of the roster, some holes, just make sure that when they go to camp, that they've got, really strong, solid positions, that they've got the depth that they need to get through a long camp, to get through 4 preseason games. So these are the kinds of moves that you're going to see from here on out.
So the big move, though, the trade for Za'Darius Smith. It became official today. The Browns announced that they did make that trade. They swapped a couple of fifth-round picks, got some draft picks back from the Vikings. Za'Darius Smith was in town and had this message for Browns fans.
Hey, Cleveland, it's Za'Darius Smith, man. I'm so happy to be a Brown. Can't wait to get started. Rule number 1, the first thing we got to do is take the division. And after that, we're going to go to the playoffs, baby. Ah!
And Mary Kay, he did seem excited to be a Cleveland Brown. That is always a good thing. Take us through how the trade with Smith kind of went down. It happened like 7:30 on a Friday.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't bark there at the end. He barked. But so basically what happened was the Browns had been looking at defensive ends for a couple of months. They knew they were going to try to add another veteran, sort of in the Jadeveon Clowney mold. There were a few guys still out there. One of them that they were interested in was Melvin Ingram, also, a 3-time Pro Bowler. So this was sort of the caliber that they were going for. And in working through, and thinking through some of the structure of the Melvin Ingram contract, they went back and revisited someone that they had thought about since the beginning of free agency and during draft weekend, trading for Za'Darius Smith, who wanted out of Minnesota. Minnesota needed some cap relief. So it just seemed like the perfect storm. So that got revived on like Tuesday or Wednesday of last week, and then it came together on Friday. They were able to rework his contract, so he no longer had 2 more years left on his contract, just 1 year on the contract at $11.75 million. The Vikings are footing a little bit of that bill, so the Browns don't have to pay the whole thing. They're paying about $10 million of it. And, I just think he's somebody that's really going to come in here and provide for them exactly what they needed. That perfect complement to Myles Garrett, who can bring that sack production and wreak havoc on those quarterbacks.
Now, last year had production early, had 9.5 sacks through the first 9 games, only a half a sack in his last 7 and was inactive. I know you wrote an article about this. So his production went down as the season went on. Why shouldn't the Browns be alarmed by that, or should they be alarmed by that?
Well, there are some extenuating circumstances for why some of that happened. It's not like it's some big mystery, and it's not like he played horribly in those final 7 games of the season. What happened is on November 13th, when they were beating the Bills, he suffered a knee contusion. He was in the middle of a monster game. He was in the midst of getting 9 pressures for the 2nd straight week and a sack in that game. But he suffered a knee contusion, and he was never really the same the rest of the season. In addition to that, teams really caught up to him and realized, we cannot let him, just be out here, getting to the quarterback, wreaking havoc, being so disruptive. We've got to get other bodies on him. And so they did that. They started focusing on him a lot more. Despite the fact that they did that, he was able to get 6 pressures on 2 occasions in those last 7 games and 5 pressures in one of those games in the last 7. So it wasn't like he just was sitting around doing nothing in the final stretch. He was still being very, very disruptive. and productive, and paving the way for Danielle Hunter to get some of his sacks. So, now that the knee is healthy, he passed his physical. I think the Browns have a big comfort level with him coming in here and being the first half guy.
So I know this is one of your Hey Mary Kays. How do you think the pass rushers kind of all fit together?
Well, I really think that, this does not mean that Obo Okoronkwo is going to lose a lot of reps. They knew that they were going to sign this third edge. You have to have guys rolling in there and rotating, and that's part of what Jim Schwartz really likes to do. So, he sort of looks at it like, he's got 130 edge reps roughly alone in each game, and now he's got 3 top rushers to dole all of those out to. And then if you factor in, Dalvin Tomlinson, as sort of a fourth edge where you could either throw him outside or some of the other guys inside, you can divide up these reps and everybody will get their opportunities. So I really don't think that Obo has anything to worry about in terms of snaps. The people that do have to worry about their reps and their snaps are those younger guys. Alex Wright, Isaiah Thomas, Isaiah McGuire. Those are the guys that are going to really have to fight for their snaps.
The other thing it gives Jim Schwartz the ability to do is find a matchup that he thinks he can exploit. And we've seen Jim Schwartz long enough to know if he finds a matchup he likes, he's going to keep going to it.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you. I mean, that is what's going to be happening a ton with this defensive line. They're going to move these guys around and they'll take input. I mean, if Miles sees a favorable matchup that he likes and wants, certainly they're going to give him that matchup. So he still will be the alpha dog on the line. And Za'Darius Smith will kind of have to pivot and adjust to the things that Miles is going to be doing and, where he's going to be. It was something that Jadeveon Clowney had a little bit of a problem with, but I think Za'Darius Smith coming in would have to know that Miles is the man here.
So this is Mina Kimes from NFL Live on what to expect from this Browns defense under Jim Schwartz.
I think Smith is a big addition. I also think a massive addition, one we really haven't talked about much, was the hiring of defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz. Because I suspect it augurs a change in defensive identity that, simply put, I would describe as more aggressive. Not up front, especially now with the Za'Darius Smith addition. Jim Schwartz doesn't really blitz much, but on the back end. So last year, Cleveland played about an even split of man and zone. When they played zone coverage, they ranked 24th in the NFL in EPA per play. When they played man, second in the league. They allowed the lowest QBR in football. They have the personnel to do it. Denzel Ward is a true shutdown corner who can cover number 1 wide receivers. And now with Schwartz, given his history, I think they have a defensive coordinator who's also willing to call on them to play more man and be more aggressive, and I think it could have a huge impact.
And Mary Kay, I think that's put pretty well. When we talk about Jim Schwartz being aggressive, it doesn't mean we think he's going to blitz a lot. It means he's going to make things really, really difficult for offenses at the line of scrimmage.
Oh, he will definitely do that. These guys, their assignments are fairly simple, and it is to kind of go forward in a hurry and ask questions later. Basically, is what they are going to be told to do. So it's not going to be hard to figure out your role. And defensive linemen love it. I talked to so many defensive linemen about Jim Schwartz when I went and covered the Super Bowl, and the Eagles guys just raved and raved about him. You could barely get the name Jim Schwartz off your lips, and they were already praising him. So those guys love it. It's the kind of defensive philosophy that defensive linemen absolutely love. They don't have to read and react and do all of that. No, they just go and they try to cause as much trouble as they possibly can. And many of them end up with a lot of sacks.
And as it was pointed out, and I agree with wholeheartedly, the Browns have the cornerbacks and the coverage people to make that work with Greg Newsome and Martin Emerson and especially Denzel Ward. And those guys love that challenge. If you're a cornerback with elite skills like that, you want to be matched up man for man.
Oh yeah, for sure. And they will be. They'll do plenty of that. And those guys all have the versatility to move around and play different roles. So, maybe Greg Newsome won't always be in the slot. this year. Maybe, they're going to cross-train guys and they'll do some different things in the back end to keep everybody happy back there too.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
I called the other day about everybody in the NFL overlooking us as a team now, even with our new additions and everything else like that. And it's almost like we come to the point to where they don't even look at us. They don't even give us that amount of credit or even give us our praise, give us our flowers. But I understand, this is the NFL. You really got to go prove it. You just can't talk about it. You just can't be good on paper. So just saying that, Kevin has a lot to do, especially we have to go in and work. We have to have this mentality because nobody else on the outside is going to give a damn if Browns make it to the playoffs or not. So we have to have this us against the world mentality at all times throughout the season. Thank you. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Mary Kay, the national media is skeptical, but the good thing is you get to prove everything on the field.
Yes, absolutely. There's no question about it. And I think part of it has to do still with Deshaun Watson. I'm not 100% certain that the national media is ready to buy in, is ready to embrace the Cleveland Browns yet because of that. So I think everyone is kind of tempering their enthusiasm. But if you look at what the Browns have done on paper this offseason, there's no way you can't start to think that they might be onto something here with winning some football games. They also have somewhere around the middle of the pack in terms of strength of schedule. And so from that standpoint, it's not like it's going to be a juggernaut week after week after week. So they do have some opportunities here.
Yeah, along the lines of the national media and kind of the low expectations, if you will. Will Brinson from CBS Sports predicted everybody's record. So this is a look at the Browns division. He's got the Bengals at 13-4, Ravens 12-5, Steelers at 9-8. He says the Browns are 7-10. So in that model, he predicts the Browns' losses to be Cincinnati twice, Baltimore twice, San Francisco, Pittsburgh, Houston, Seattle, Denver, and the New York Jets, which, again, none of this factors on the field, but I would be surprised if that happened. I would be surprised, and I think everybody would be disappointed if they finish with 7 wins.
I just don't see that. I don't see that. Like I said, I think it's taking the national media a little while to try to buy into the fact that Deshaun Watson is going to be close to the Deshaun Watson that he was in 2020 when he led the league with 4,800 and some yards. People are remembering what happened last year in the last 6 games of the season, and I just don't know if that's an accurate barometer of who Deshaun Watson really is or what he's going to be this season. Furthermore, the Browns have upgraded so many spots, including receiver for him, and then they have overhauled the entire defense. This is not your 2022 defense by any stretch of the imagination. So if it all comes together on paper, I think they should definitely win more than 7 games, and they should challenge for the playoffs. Am I saying they're going to win the AFC North? I think it's going to be really hard to win the AFC North this year because of the strength of that division. Anybody could win it at this point. Anybody can not necessarily run away with it, but I think it's going to be a fight to the finish. I really do. Because you can never even count out the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, they are just a solid football team that knows how to win games. So, so I can't promise you that I think they're going to win the division, but I do think that they're going to challenge for a playoff spot.
Yeah, again, the division, by most accounts, is the toughest division in football, being the AFC North, and I can see where people arrive at that. I know you wrote an article about this. What does Kevin Stefanski think about Deshaun Watson taking the offense to Puerto Rico during the final week of that offseason program?
You know what? He is absolutely all for it. It's this week that's happening out in Berea. It gives the Browns an opportunity to focus a little bit more on those rookies, get those guys acclimated, and kind of let those veterans go down and do their thing in Puerto Rico, where they can get a lot of reps in. They can do passing camp, basically, is what it kind of is. And, let Deshaun Watson develop that on-field and off-field chemistry with his new teammates. So Kevin Stefanski is all about it. They went down there with his blessing, and he's doing all kinds of things to get this team together this year like that.
You know, the thing is, he is going to develop an on-the-field chemistry, almost like a sixth sense with, and nobody knows. One of these receivers is going to be the guy that kind of is on the same plane when he breaks free on the pocket and comes up with big plays. And kind of this is the beginning of where you figure out who that's going to be. And I don't think they know who it's going to be right now.
No, and you're not going to know who it's going to be until the fur is flying and the lights are on. I mean, that kind of chemistry doesn't happen until the games are underway and the live rush is on and all that sort of thing. It doesn't really happen. Odell Beckham Jr. used to say that all the time. You have to have in-game chemistry, not in-practice chemistry. He was really, really big on that. And so that's what has to happen. Deshaun is going to have to find his favorite targets. His favorite targets are going to have to find a way to be there and available for Deshaun, and it will happen. Those things will naturally evolve, and it might not be a well-oiled machine in the first 3 weeks of the season, but they have to be ready. I mean, they have got to hit the ground running. They don't have any time this year to ramp it up and hope that that they're going to develop timing and chemistry and all those cool things. They have to have it from the.
So when you look at preseason, do you think Deshaun Watson and the starters play more this preseason than they have in the past?
You know what? I actually do think that they probably will play a little bit more than they have in the past, because Deshaun does need to find, just his sea legs a little bit with this offense. He's got to slide the protections and figure out, how much jurisdiction does he have over those kinds of things? How much, authority does he have to audibilize or call plays at the line of scrimmage or whatever he hopes to do? So I do think that they probably will try a little bit more live action in preseason, but they're not going to overdo it because they want to get everybody to the season healthy. And they also have some key practices coming up against the Philadelphia Eagles. 2 key practices against one of the best defenses in the NFL in Philadelphia on August, I think, 14th and 15th.
And as you touched on, with 3 divisional games in those first 4 weeks, you can't afford a slow start.
No, I mean, you really can't. And you're going to know right from the jump how you stack up. The only good part about that for them is that, maybe they will be catching the Baltimore Ravens before Todd Monken and Lamar Jackson and Odell Beckham Jr. and Zay Flowers all have their mojo down, because that's going to be a new operation over there too. Now, of course, we know that the Bengals are going to be probably in mid-season form, by the time the Browns, see them on opening day. I mean, not necessarily mid-season form, but they can pick up where they left off last year in the AFC Championship game and where they did the year before in the Super Bowl. So, the Browns, they've got to be ready. I mean, they have to be ready for the chemistry that, that they're going to need to have. Of course, the good thing for the Browns is they seem to have Joe Burrow's number. I mean, it's really uncanny, but they do very, very well against the Bengals.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit about Browns rookie mini camp that wrapped up, plus some more talk about what Andrew Berry might do. Is he done shopping for free agents and making trades? We'll ask Mary Kay, Sports4CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to Go Forward. Back to learning new things. back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Browns wrapped up rookie minicamp, went on last weekend. Mary Kay, I know you were out in Berea. What were some of your takeaways from the rookie minicamp?
Well, first of all, DeJuan Jones is big. This just in, he's a big guy, really, really big. He needs to get in better shape, but, he learned some things in that camp, and he will be in better shape, when we see him again down the road a little bit. He, of course, will be here for the offseason program, but when he has to get out there, with the veterans and mini camp and things like that, I think he'll be a little bit more ready for that. Cedric Tillman certainly looked the part. He looked like a, big, in-shape receiver with good hands that can go up and high point the ball. He did a nice job, dropped a couple here and there, but that's to be expected. He was working with his high school quarterback, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, so that was cool for him. Siaki Ika, he was not as, let's say, round around the middle as I thought he was going to be. I think he's already working really, really hard to get in shape and to eat right. It seemed to me like he was prepared to come in here and do the right things and be ready for this. So I think that's a really, really good sign. He wants to play at a certain weight. He wants to play at like 335. I think they're fine with him at 340, maybe even 345. But as long as it's good weight, that's what you want to see. You want to see, good weight, not, like fat weight. So, so I think, I think he's working really, really hard on that. And yeah, so, these guys, they worked hard. A lot of them, looked the part physically. They took the coaching really well. A lot of really good personalities. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, great personality, lots of flair. He's going to be good for Deshaun Watson in that quarterback room. So lots of good things out there. Yeah,
and we know that Siaki Ika knows that by a Ferrari, Jim Schwartz wants him to get upfield, and he seemed to like that idea. He said he didn't want to be a dump truck anymore.
Yeah, he gets it now. Now he knows what Jim Schwartz meant by that. We laughed because we asked him, on draft day, what did he mean by that? And he was like, I have no idea, but I'll do it. Whatever it is, I'll do it. He said, I'll be a Chevy if he wants me to be a Chevy. So he's got some personality. A lot of these guys do. So there's a lot of good energy going around out there right now. And then, when you see Za'Darius Smith come in and bring the excitement and the energy that he did when he was at the facility today, I really think there's a new vibe going on out there in Berea that's going to serve everyone well.
So I know you've been asked this in your Hey Mary Kay. Do you think Andrew Berry is done with free agent and trade shopping, or do you think he still may have one or two left in him?
You know what? I think he can probably find a few other things that, that he likes, but I don't necessarily think it will be a blockbuster move per se. I do think that they will add a running back of some kind. And it will probably be somebody that can carry the load for them in the event that Nick Chubb and Jerome Ford both get injured or can't go. I think they do need somebody. They did get down to Dearness Johnson a couple times, in the COVID year, and he was able to go out there and rush for 100 yards for them. So they need a guy like that, and I think they will add that. So yeah, there still are a few pieces that they need, but I think for the most part, the heavy lifting is done.
Yeah, and you know what? The upgrade is apparent on paper, at least. You have to be impressed with what Andrew Berry's been able to do. Let's take a look at this, and I'm curious as to your reaction to it. Brandon Little from SI.com, Browns Digest. Browns are one of two teams that have a good chance at landing running back Ezekiel Elliott, per report. That's from SI.com, Browns Digest. Chargers were listed as the other team. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know what? I really had not heard that. It's something that I would have to check into more. I can't honestly say that I know that that's, that's something on the front burner right now. Again, it would be interesting, and I know they're looking for a running back. Just not sure if Zeke is the one they have in mind.
That's fair enough. Let me ask you this. How do you think the Browns linebackers fit into the mix? And again, I know this is from one of your Hey Mary Kays.
Well, those guys, they just need to come back healthy for the most part. And I'm sure that, they'll probably look around for other veteran linebackers and make sure that they know that they've got some guys that are really healthy heading into this season. But it's not a super premium position for them. Those guys, will be asked to do a lot, but the defensive linemen are sort of the stars of the show. And then after that, the linebackers kind of clean things up and do their part. But they don't necessarily in this defense really need the big time superstar, big money linebackers. I think they're prepared to go for the most part with what they have.
And the thought would be if your defensive tackles, are a little bigger and able to, be more aggressive and get some push, it keeps the linebackers clean to have the ability to make the plays.
Yeah, absolutely. And, they've got so many bodies up front now, so many guys that they can rotate in, so many guys that you can play either inside or outside. So they have really what they need up front. They're very excited about it. I think that Jim Schwartz has got to be one of the most fired up guys in the building with all he has to work with now. My goodness. I mean, if you just have Miles and Za'Darius alone, that's pretty amazing to go into a season like that. So he's got what he needs, and it'll be interesting to watch him work through it all.
How impressed are you with the depth? The top end of the roster I thought was really good last year. What I think has been upgraded a lot is, that there's going to be some real battles for the last few spots on that 53-man roster, I think.
Yeah, there will be, but you have to remember that there are so many practice squad positions open these days that you just don't really have to worry too much about, having to part ways with a guy that you would like to see stick around in your system, in your organization. For the most part, you can put them on the practice squads and try to keep them as best you possibly can. Obviously, if they're that good, somebody else is going to poach them and sign them to their active roster. But for the most part, I think they'll be able to keep the guys that they need to, and also then develop their farm system there on the practice squad.
The depth of this, even more than it was last year, do you think? When you look at, I think last year when you looked at it, if you were like, if we can stay away from injuries here, and here, and they seem to have tried to address that in a number of spots.
Well, just defensive tackle alone, when you added Dalvin Tomlinson to that position, and then you have all the other guys, around him that, that can fortify that position, right then and there, they've got more depth. Now they have more depth at the edge rush position because they're really three strong with three really good top rushers on the outside. And then you've got the young guys, Alex Wright, Isaiah, McGuire, Thomas, to come in there and get their reps when they can. Defensive backs, there's a lot of good defensive backs. They might still add more because you need a lot in that room. You're going to be playing a lot of 3 wides, a lot of 4 wides. And you can't have too many good cornerbacks. You can't have too many good safeties. So, they'll probably keep adding to that pile. But, for the most part, I think they're in pretty good shape heading into camp.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. As always, thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much, Mary Kay.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot, always great Browns coverage. Make sure you check her out. Pages of the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. We continue talking Browns. Senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report, Fred Greetham, straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns here on Sports for CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. Ron Byer back again. As part of the huge fan base of loyal Cleveland Browns fans, we have anxiously sat back and watched our star engineer and designer, Andrew Berry, create what's hopefully the winning design vehicle. 2 new mechanics have been brought in, Jim Schwartz and Bubba Vitrone, to keep the vehicle running smooth, and added a new part/extreme passion, which has been lacking in the old vehicles. And now what's left? We're putting in the driver's seat someone who once showed great potential, but was out of commission for a while. He now is getting back into the seat and hopefully can show everyone in the NFL that he is a winning driver. Now the vehicle is being turned over to the man who now hopefully has matured and is ready to handle the total powerful package and headed into a winning position, Kevin Stefanski. The time is now. We must be going full strength starting day one.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. And Fred, the pieces are there. The actions show that the Browns they realize it's win now.
Yeah, I think people around the NFL are just waking up to that fact, which, I think has been apparent for a while. When they traded for Deshaun Watson, obviously they were all in then with the contract and the commitment, but, they had some holes in the roster. And I think this year in the offseason, they've addressed those in a big way. You see the national media starting to come on, but most national sites in their power rankings, I see them anywhere from 13th to 20th. They just don't believe in the Browns. And I think that's a good thing for the Browns that they're under the radar, because it seems like when they're talked about a lot, they underperform. So I would think that for Browns fans, you'd rather them be under the radar. And I think they have a roster. There's no question this roster is better than it was last year when the season ended. And I thought that was a good roster. So I think they put themselves in a position. Now there's so many good teams in the AFC, even in the AFC North, that they have a gauntlet ahead of them. But I think everything's there, the ingredients. Now it's just, as the caller said, it's up to Kevin Stefanski, Deshaun Watson, to put it all together and make it happen.
Yeah, I would agree. The roster was good. It's even better. So the Browns traded for Za'Darius Smith over the weekend, Friday night, actually. Marcus Spears, former defensive lineman, was on ESPN's NFL Live, talked about that acquisition of Smith for the Browns.
It's so big. I think this is going to be one of those sneaky ones. If Cleveland is having a successful year and playing really good defense, we'll come back to Za'Darius Smith being acquired in a trade. The one thing he does that Jadeveon Clowney couldn't do is he gets quarterbacks on the ground. And that's not a slight at Jadeveon Clowney. Clowney was one of the best pressuring defensive ends in the NFL. He didn't finish at the quarterback. Za'Darius finishes at the quarterback. And we know the other ammo on the other side by the name of Myles Garrett finishes. He is also going to dictate protection as well. He is a guy you have to pay more attention to. You don't want to leave your tackle on an island with Za'Darius Smith for the majority of the game. Now you in a conundrum. You in a catch-22 with this situation in Cleveland as well. And the thing that and in this division, he's a good run defender as well, which he doesn't get enough credit for, which you're going to have to be in this division with Pittsburgh and Baltimore, obviously, and Cincinnati.
All right, so Field Yates tweets out some of the financial details. Vikings, they eat up $1.177 million. That's a signing bonus. The Browns adjust Smith's cap charge down to just over $3 million in 2023, so they likely added some voidable years onto the backside of that. Smith's upside in 2023 is up to almost $13 million in cash. Fred, again, Andrew Berry went out and Za'Darius Smith is higher than I thought they could get with that edge rusher that I thought they needed.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously moves ahead of Obo Okoronkwo, who I thought was a big-time signing. And it's what I wanted all along for the Browns, is to have depth and a rotation. We saw it with Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney when he was healthy, is you didn't really have a lot behind him. And if one of those guys were dinged up or needed to blow, there was a drop off. And I think this allows Alex Wright, Isaiah McGuire, Isaiah Thomas to move down a notch, in the rotation, and you're not counting on those guys. I said this on your show before, and I've written all winter, is you cannot count on rookies to come in and immediately help you. You hope that in the second half of the season they can help you, but right off the get-go, now you have Smith, Garrett, and Okoronkwo, in a rotation, and I really like the Obo signing. He's an up-and-coming rising star, it appears, at edge. And then you got Za'Darius Smith, who I like in this trade, very similar to the Amari Cooper trade last year. Obviously, Cooper became the number one, but you got Myles Garrett. But, Za'Darius Smith is very close to Garrett. In fact, in the last, 4 years, there's only been 5 edge rushers that had 10 sacks or more in 3 of those 4 years. And Myles Garrett and Za'Darius Smith are 2 of them. So, I don't know how you can argue with that move. All you gave up is some money. And even if it's a 1-year rental, it shows they're all in for this year.
Yeah, and I know you've written about this. Take us through, you have Smith and you have McLeod, and that kind of finishes off the defense with guys that have been there and done that for a while.
Yeah, I wrote a series back before free agency, 5 steps to get the Browns back to the playoffs, and I won't go into all the details, but the number 1 was interior defensive tackle. They got Dalvin Tomlinson, and they signed a couple other veterans, as well as drafted Siaki Ika. But the second one was edge rusher. Jim Schwartz really wants to disrupt and be an attacking defense, and you got to have players to get to the quarterback. And they went out and got Okoronkwo, and I thought that was good, but I really wanted them to get another one. And there was about 8 to 10, 30-plus veterans sitting out there that you could get maybe on a 1-year deal, but they traded for Za'Darius Smith. And so that, to me, is a home run. So you've addressed those first 2 positions big. You had wide receiver. You traded for Elijah Moore and got Marquise Goodwin. The 4th one was safety. And I thought Juan Thornhill was a big signing, but I really felt they were very thin. They really just had Thornhill and Grant Delpit. They needed depth. They didn't draft any. They signed a couple Ohio State undrafted free agents. But to go get Rodney McLeod on a 1-year deal, he played for the Eagles under Schwartz when they won the Super Bowl. He's played 11, 12 years in the NFL. Last year, Pro Football Focus had him as the 7th best safety in the NFL. He's a starting caliber safety, and you have him now along with Thornhill and Delpit. So you have 3 solid safeties. So, and you re-signed Anthony Walker, who I felt was, a leader on the defense. So all being told, I can't argue with what they did. And these additions, I just think, are an exclamation point after the draft to get Za'Darius Smith and Rodney McLeod. I just think is really big-time acquisitions.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now they have to go out and do it on the field, That's what's left for him. This is also kind of interesting. This is from around the NFL. Ndamukong Suh, who does have some ties to Jim Schwartz. He's 36. He's unlikely to sign with his next squad before training camp. Doesn't want to go through training camp, which when you're 36 and you play defensive line is understandable. He says when week 1 happens, I'll be ready. It's worth monitoring. Suh played for Jim Schwartz. They may feel like another defensive tackle that's a vet is something that they are clearly in win-now mode.
Oh, no question. They put the chips on the table. I think that they're going to see what they have in Maurice Hurst, Tristan Hill, 2 guys that played in the NFL there were higher draft picks that haven't had a great career, had some injuries. But to go with Tomlinson, they like Ika. Obviously drafted him, in the 3rd round. So I think they'll see what they have there. But then there's some of these mercenary type guys like Sue out there. There's a guy I like, Matt Ionditis. He played for the Panthers last year. He's a run stopper, a veteran, and I believe he's still unsigned. There's a handful of guys out there, and I think that they'll look in training camp, what they have, and they'll make a decision. Do we need another guy, and can we add another guy, on a 1-year incentive contract? So the big one was the edge rusher to me, but I would like, if it was up to me, I would probably like to bring in an interior defensive lineman, and Sue could be a guy. I mean, last year, I think he waited until the season was going kind of to see what it was looking like with teams. And there's no question guys like that want to go on a playoff team, have a chance for the Super Bowl. And I think the Browns could be in the hunt, especially like you said, with Schwartz's background. But I think they'll probably look to see what they have, and then they'll look at their options as they get close to the regular season.
What do you think about the way the schedule lays out? You got 3 of the first 4 games are against divisional opponents.
Yeah, I kind of look at this. It's daunting, but it's an opportunity. You look at it once. Say Jim Schwartz. Everybody knows what he's done in the past, but he's going to be fresh with the Browns. The Browns have been pretty successful against Joe Burrow and against Lamar Jackson. And I would think Jim Schwartz would be able to use some of the same ideas in those games and be attacking, kind of, especially in the first game with the Bengals and Burrow, that they'd be able to come out of the gate. You're going to have a home crowd fired up. Everybody should be sky high. And I think this is an opportunity for the Browns to really strike quick. And in those first 4 games, actually first 5 games, you got 49ers. I think you got 3 playoff teams. But you have a chance to really gain some quick momentum and jump out to an early lead. Sure, you can look back and say, wow, that was a tough start. But I think you have to look at it as an opportunity to jump out and get a jump in the division, particularly with the Bengals, Steelers, and Ravens. If you could win 2 of those 3, I think you can put yourself in a position, as you get your footing down the schedule breaks a little bit in the second half, and you could really make some hay down the road. But I really think that it's an opportunity for the Browns to surprise some teams before they know what hit them, so to say. I mean, if you could jump out of the gate and beat the Bengals and the Steelers right off the bat, then maybe split with the Titans and Ravens, you could put yourself in a really good position. You got to bye to regroup, and then as you get going. I think the farthest they travel almost the entire until the end of October is Indianapolis. They have 2 away games. They play the Steelers in Pittsburgh and the Colts in Indianapolis. Everything else, 4 of the 6 are at home in those 2 games. Then they go to Seattle in the 7th game. So you really have a chance. If you want to take home cooking serious, this is a chance to get off to a really good start, set the tone for the season. As we've seen in the NFL, sometimes you get on a roll and you're really, I think last year the Eagles really got on a roll and it carried them all year. And, the Browns, who knows? They're talented enough, if they could just get out to a good start, anything can happen.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst from the Orange and Brown Report. Now I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, another national look at what the Browns defense looks like now after the addition of Za'Darius Smith. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns here on Sports for CLE with Fred Greetham, senior analyst from the Orange and Brown Report. Dan Orlovsky on ESPN's NFL Live talking about the addition of Za'Darius Smith and the Browns defense.
Who's the jerk on this defense? Like who's the jerk? Like who's the, for better language, a-hole? And Marcus, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. They don't have that guy. Look at talent, like how
they just got him, D.O.
Okay, if that's Za'Darius, he's individually talented, Marcus.
Yep.
Myles Garrett, Dalvin Tomlinson, Za'Darius Smith, Jock, Anthony Walker, Taki, Denzel Ward, Grant Delpit, Juan Thornhill, Newsome. How is this? I mean, that's 9. That's 10 names I just gave you guys.
I know.
There's only 11 on the field. They're so individually, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like they need to play more connected, and that's going to be the challenge for Jim Schwartz. And I think, like Mina, they'll be more aggressive in their zone and man. But at some point, someone on the defense just got to be care less about being liked and be a little bit of a jerk on their unit because they're talented.
Agree with you.
Yeah, they certainly
I
are
agree.
talented. Yeah, the game is not played on paper, though, Dan. It feels like in recent years that talent has not necessarily matched the performance on the field.
And Fred, that's kind of what they're getting at. You got to have a guy that's like, no, we need to go out and get it done on the field. And that has been lacking, in fairness. It's been lacking on the defensive side of the ball the last 2 years.
Yes. All the moves the Browns made with players, I think the biggest addition the Browns made this offseason is hiring Jim Schwartz as defensive coordinator. I think he is the nasty, in a good way, guy that the defense needs over there. Joe Woods is very likable guy. I liked him a lot. But to me, he had a very similar personality to Kevin Stefanski. And I think that Jim Schwartz, I've already seen him a little in the mini camp. I just think he's going to get the players prepared to play. You're not going to have some of the shenanigans you had last year when a Jadeveon Clowney opted not to play on 1st and 2nd down in the Ravens game and some of those things that came out. I really think that Schwartz will have them ready to start the season. And I do think that they have the players, and I know it is on paper, but I do think they have really good players and they have a coach that will get the most out of them. They mentioned in that little clip, Joe Woods did not play man-to-man at cornerback and in the secondary very often. The 3 years he was there with the Browns, they ranked in the 20s, near the bottom, 23rd, 25th, 26th in the amount of time they played man-to-man coverage. When Jim Schwartz was with the Eagles, they played man-to-man like 5th, 7th. They were in the top 10 3 or 4 times out of his 4 or 5 years. And the Browns last year didn't play a lot of man-to-man, but when they did under Joe Woods, they had like the second best secondary. And you're paying Denzel Ward a lot of money to be a shutdown corner. And you got Greg Newsome in the first round to do it on the other side. And you have Martin Emerson, A.J. Green, a couple other guys. When you have the front four you have with Myles Garrett, Za'Darius Smith, Obo Okoronkwo, and the inside rush, you need to be in man-to-man and get after the quarterback and make things happen. So I think you're going to see a much more aggressive defense this year under Schwartz in man-to-man and getting after the quarterback. And I think that will go a long way in the defenses. And I don't think the defense has to be top 5, top 10. I think if they could just shave off some points, last year they gave up 22, 23 a game. If they could get 20 or under, I think this offense will score enough to win games. So that's the way I see it in May. I mean, obviously May's a long time from September.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think the defense will look drastically different, just in the attitude. I know you wrote an article for the Orange and Brown Report. Isaiah McGuire, the edge rusher from rookie minicamp. Take us through that. What you saw, what you found out about McGuire.
Well, I saw him in minicamp over the weekend, and I think I'll preface this before the draft. I'm not really counting on the rookies when you didn't have a pick till the third round, whether it's Ika, Cedric Tillman, who signed today, by the way, and Isaiah McGuire, I liked him going in the draft. But again, you got him in the fourth round. I think he's a guy you can develop, and you hope like Isaiah Thomas, last year pick, and, the other defensive end, Alex Wright, that you have three guys that you can develop, but you don't need to play right away. I think McGuire, coming out of the SEC in Missouri, will be more ready to play than maybe guys that didn't play at that level. I like his burst. I like his pass rush. But I think you're not going to have to rush him onto the field. Now you have those three veterans, and now you can, see who's best. Alex Wright, McGuire, or Thomas to be the fourth or fifth defensive end. So I like the pick, and I like that they don't have to rush him in. In years past with the Browns, you had to draft a guy in the third and fourth round. You were counting on them to play. You're not counting on those guys to play now. If they get on the field, it's because they really are showing something.
Also, Cedric Tillman, I know you wrote an article from him about him from rookie minicamp as well. Take us through what you saw with him and just the article.
Well, I like him. He's big, 6'3". He's one thing, the receivers added some speed, but they didn't have a lot of size. And when you have a 6'3" guy, he's known for going up in the end zone, being able to high point the ball, and maybe those jump balls, it could really be effective down in the red zone. Interesting story. We were talking to the quarterback, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He said they were teammates in high school at Bishop Gorman High School in Las Vegas. They won the state championship. And the question was, so did you know Cedric was bound for the NFL back in high school? And he said, actually, no, I was the starting wide receiver, and he was my backup. They moved him to quarterback when Tate Martell moved on. You remember his name from Ohio State. Robinson became the quarterback, and Tillman took over at that wide receiver. And then he really grew, and he blossomed, went to Tennessee, and was really a star wide receiver there. Got hurt last year with Tennessee and only played 6 games after he had ankle surgery, but he still had 37 catches in like 6 games for over 400 yards. So I think the Browns might have got a steal there, because if he would have played all year, not with the ankle surgery, he would have went over 1,200 yards probably for the second year in a row. I know the year before he was being talked about as being a potential first-round draft pick. So Browns got him in the third round. I think he might be, along with Ika, the other third-round pick, one of the guys that can help him this year, get on the field sooner than later.
Fred Greetham from the Orange and Brown Report now. I'm going to take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear and take a look at what some of the national people that were former NFL head coaches think about the Browns and this roster. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Welcome back to Sports4CLE. We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Former Browns offensive lineman Jim Schwartz gives us his take on the state of the Browns heading into 2023.
But it kind of comes back to the quarterback, and if he plays the way he played last year, then that's going to be the worst team in the division. If he plays better, then we'll see what happens. But if I was a Cleveland fan, I wouldn't be super optimistic right now, just based on what we've seen and the contract and the draft capital given to him.
Fred, again, we briefly touched on it. The national perspective is a little different than the local perspective. I don't think there's any way he can play as bad as he did a season ago. 700 days off, 11 weeks where your other team was played, an offense that isn't as, I mean, there was so much working against you if you take a step back and think about it logically if you were Deshaun Watson last year.
Well, I agree with Mitchell Schwartz that if he plays like he did last year, yeah, the team will be in the middle of the pack. But I agree also, I don't see that happening. Any team, if Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson missed the first 11 games of the season, that team would be sunk. And even if they came back after missing 11 games due to injury, I think it would take them a little time. When you haven't played in 2 years, I think I'm not trying to make excuses for the guy, but that was a little bit, daunting to do so. And then you think of the New Orleans game. You had 45-mile-an-hour winds and below zero. And there was another all-rain game after his first 2 games, just kind of getting going. Yeah, he had the Washington game where he had a great half, showed glimpses, but then the Steelers game kind of regressed. So if he plays like that, yeah, the Browns are going to not go anywhere. But I saw too much in him as a rookie, and after he got hurt with the ACL his rookie year, he had 3 straight Pro Bowl years. He's still very athletic. I saw that last year in training camp. I just think a full off season, and also the weight of the world, was on his shoulders last year. He might have hid that a bit, but I don't care who you are, and again, he brought a lot of that on himself, but that still, is quite a burden to carry, not knowing if you're going to play, when you're going to play, and so forth. So I think all bets are off. No excuses. He needs to play well, but I think he will. And I think that the national media, for the most part, is holding everything against Watson because of his off-field accusations, and they really don't want him to be successful. That's my take. Yeah. Might be wrong on that, but they also based his play on those 6 games. And yeah, it was very pedestrian, but I don't know how he could play worse. I think that he will bounce back this year. They have went and got him weapons. They have built everything up around him. The offense is going to be tailored. Last year, Kevin Stefanski tried to change midstream after 11 games with Jacoby Brissett. That's a completely different system or a different style of quarterback than what you have in Deshaun Watson. So if I will be very disappointed if they don't play, explosive offense, that we have heard about, since the trade was made.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. And you saw glimpses. It just wasn't consistent enough with Watson. There were 2 or 3 plays, and even the games he didn't play well, where you're like, all right, that's kind of what we were looking for. All right, before I let you go, NFL teams in every division that could surprise in 2023. This from the 33rd team. Those are former executives and coaches from the NFL. AFC North, Marty Morningwig. Watson is the key to the Browns' hopes. If Kevin Stefanski and the Browns can get Deshaun Watson to play at the level he was a few years ago, they might have the opportunity to win the division or slip into the playoffs. Dave Wannstedt, also former coach. Cleveland can rock the division. Watson cannot be as bad as he was last year, so I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I'm also going to give the coach and the offensive coordinator the benefit of the doubt. They're under a lot of pressure, and they will respond and they get a good year out of Watson. And those are guys in Morningwig and Wannstedt who understand the pressure of what Kevin Stefanski is under because they have been in his seat as a head coach.
Yeah, we've said it several times. There's no excuses, but I think the moves they did on defense, they overhauled the defense with some big-time players. And like I said, I think Jim Schwartz is the key. If that defense, usually they say defense travels. If they can keep the Browns in games until Watson, the offense, get their feet under them and get the ball running, so to say, I think that they can win the division. I mean, Lamar Jackson, he's a great player, but the Browns showed that even with Joe Woods in that defense, they kept him under control ever since that 47-42, primetime shootout. They had his number, and I don't see them regressing there. And Joe Woods in the defense, able to do a pretty good job against Burrow and the Bengals. And so I just think that they have the ingredients. Now you got to mix it right. But I think they should be right in the hunt. Obviously, there's a lot of things. Injuries could happen, or for whatever reason they don't mesh like we all think they will. But I surely think, I've said this, but this roster's better than last year's roster. And I thought last year's roster was maybe the best roster in the 30-some years I've covered this team. So right now in May, they have the best roster that I've had the privilege to cover this team.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report, as always. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much, Fred.
Thanks for having me, Dave. Have a great day.
All right, you too. Fred Greetham, make sure you check him out. Always really good stuff. He is the senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.